Welcome to Perusing's Appraisers on Purpose podcast. Our podcast showcases inspiring appraisers and professionals from the industry who are leaders in their field. How did they get to where they are? What have they learned along the way? What can we learn from them? Your host is real estate investor, entrepreneur, and appraiser, Michael Hobbs.
Friends, welcome to another informative, engaging, and I will even offer more than intriguing conversation today. I'm thrilled to have Chad with us. Chad, thanks for joining us here on Perusing's, the Appraisers on Purpose podcast.
Pleasure to be here. I appreciate you having me.
Yeah, we always love the opportunity to hear from peers all around the industry, residential, commercial, specialty work, mainline work, whatever it may be, no work at all. Who knows what it might? But nonetheless, friends, it's because of not only your general interest, but also your really thoughtful sharing and encouraging of others to take a listen to so many of our wonderful episodes now over several years and continue to provide fantastic acknowledgement. So thanks for subscribing. Thanks for clicking the like button on this episode. You will find this fascinating, a whole different perspective, one we haven't heard from before. And not just because it's Chad, but not a lot of people have accomplished what Chad has. And by the end, you will definitely be scratching your head saying, there's a lot more out in the industry than maybe I knew about. So to kick it all off, Chad, everybody wants to know, were you born this way, or how did your life come to intersect the valuation and appraisal profession?
Yeah, so I've heard you ask that question a number of times, having frequently listened to the podcast. And I'm going to answer, maybe.
I mean, most people know, but that's okay. Maybe.
Right? I know. So I got to mix it up a little bit here. I mean, I was born the way that I am, and then I became an appraiser. So perhaps it was my destiny.
Yes.
No, but
destiny.
So listen, I got started as an appraiser in 1996.
You were born in 1996. That's impressive, Chad. You're probably the youngest person on the podcast.
You think? Maybe I have. Well, if you do the math, I just turned 51. So,
yeah.
But at that time, I was finishing my bachelor's in finance and economics, and we went to IU's Kelley School of Business. And
yeah,
I always say this, that a lot of people, at that stage in their life, the career path that I was looking for was a lot different than where it ended up. In fact, at that point, appraising wasn't even on my radar. But I graduated, and then a friend of a friend's family, they had been in real estate brokerage for decades near the city of Indianapolis. And they were one of them was branching off to start an appraisal firm. And he asked me to come on board. And,
really?
The more I learned about that business, the more it made sense. The flexibility, the analytical side of valuation, the fact that it was a startup, all of that appealed to me. And I decided to try it. So, and as the story goes, my first day was pretty funny, if you'd like to hear it.
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely. But before we get to your first day,
okay,
I find it fascinating. So you went to IU,
Kelley,
and I thought people graduated with a degree in Little Five.
Well, I went to so this is good. I went to Indianapolis University and Purdue University, so IUPUI, which is right.
Oh,
Ooey pooey. That was me. But they had Kelley School of Business there as well. It was a great experience. My wife also graduated from Ooey pooey. My oldest daughter graduated from IU Bloomington. My son graduated from Ooey pooey, and I have a senior at IU Bloomington. So our family of 5 will all be IU graduates.
Well, those are some deep roots there around the team. I was just talking about Bobby Knight about 4 hours ago. So, I mean, just bringing out the Wayback Machine.
Yep.
Wow, that's phenomenal. So I take it you're from Indianapolis area.
Yeah, I was born and raised in Indianapolis. I spent some time out in Bozeman, Montana as a kid for a couple of years, but I've lived in Indianapolis my whole life.
Yeah, that's something else. All right. Well, thanks for sharing that. That's amazing. That's all. We have so many firsts on the podcast. That is definitely a first, not just with the Kelley School of Business, but ooey pooey. So, I mean, you're just racking up the first here, Chad. That's impressive. But you're that first experience there, you get this. So you're a graduate And did you
Yep.
take employment somewhere and then you went over to this opportunity, or were you just trying to figure out what I'm going to do when I graduate? And via a family friend, this opportunity kind of came around.
Yeah, it was really a couple of months before graduation that I got the opportunity. Said, "Hey, come over to the office and 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 we'll see if a trainee position is right for you." So I was given the appraisal office's address, and
Oh,
I was told to show up and talk
yes.
about becoming a trainee. And I interpreted that as show up and have an interview for the job,
Yes.
right?
Yes.
I showed up a bit early, of course,
Yes.
and the brother of my friend greeted me and really had no idea why I was there. So I was like, well, listen, Tony Ebuyer, that was my friend, told me that I was supposed to show up for an interview at this time and potentially become a trainee appraiser. And
Yes.
he casually said something like, well, I'm David Ebuyer and I'm on my way out to do an appraisal. Come on, let's go. Hop in the truck.
Okay.
So, which I did. And in retrospect, that constituted, I guess, a very efficient interview, offer, and acceptance of employment all at once. So
Oh my
I participated in my first appraisal about 30 minutes on the job.
That's so impressive. I mean, that's more efficient than Amazon. I mean, holy cow, you get all those things done at once.
It was pretty fun. And, those guys they're characters as well. And, I was thinking about this question.
Yes, sir.
And I was reflecting on it, and I became very enthusiastic about it because it gives me the opportunity to sort of, publicly thank, after all these years, a few folks that really helped me out in my life and in my career. And, because for the next 2 years, I spent, doing appraisals as a trainee with David. I spent doing appraisals with his father,
Yes.
Tony, David's father, Joe Ebuyer. And of course, I was working very closely with Tony as well. But that time really kind of set the stage and opened a lot of doors for me. And, so if they ever hear this, thanks, guys. I really have a lot of respect for that family.
Oh, that's fantastic. I believe they will. This podcast goes far and wide, and there'll be no reason why they won't. So that's a wonderful acknowledgement and fascinating. So, did he make you also drive the truck on the first day, or you just had to be the passenger?
No, I was just a passenger. So I got stories for days here, Michael. His father, Joe, was a BMW guy. He had in the club, and he actually used to teach a lot of the Greenwood police. The Greenwood is a city, suburb south of Indianapolis.
Actually, being from Louisville, Kentucky, I know where Greenwood is.
Yeah, he would teach them how to drive. He would give driving lessons to new recruits. So, so David and Tony drove like maniacs. So no, I did not drive. I white knuckled, my chair as we drove out there.
I love that. What an experience. Oh my goodness.
Yeah.
So you knew nothing about appraisal. Did you study what, like psychology or, biology or geology back in the day? I mean, you went to the Kelley School of Business, so you're probably in the business realm.
Yeah. I studied finance. I studied economics. I do have a passion for philosophy, but nothing even related to real estate.
Well,
my father was a small business owner, but he was a mechanic. So, I mean, we just really were not near it. And that's why it was, when I finally did get into it and got my trainee's license, it was the math, it was the scientific approach, but then also a level of deduction and reason that goes into that reconciliation process as you're thinking about how buyers and sellers are behaving around market conditions.
Wow, that's something else. So what was it like being, you didn't know any different because sounds like that was your first employment and you've been in the industry the whole time, or best we know so far.
Yeah.
What's it like? And was it always just, hopping in the pickup truck and going and seeing a house, or did you have to hop on a bicycle and go somewhere else, or you grab the motorcycle? I mean, tell us about it. I mean, those that don't know Indianapolis, I mean, whether you're on 465 or, 865 or 265, however it goes, 65.
Yeah, no. So Indianapolis is right in the center of the state, and we covered Marion County, which
Okay.
encompasses the boundaries of the city, and then basically all of the adjacent counties,
Mhm.
all the way around. It's probably 50 square miles. And I operated in that coverage area for the better part of a decade. So obviously became
Oh, wow.
certified at some point and was full time, boots on ground, doing appraisals at a very heavy clip for about 10 years, and became really a part of that firm and helping to grow it with Tony and David, and we grew it to the largest appraisal firm in the city. I think at one
Really?
point we had about 17 appraisers just in Indianapolis. So we
Oh, that's
we had a
fantastic.
good market share, and different times. Obviously, that was back in the late '90s, early 2000s, when there
Yeah.
was a lot of volume. But no, there wasn't an area in that geography that we didn't go. And one of the things that was interesting is we never rejected assignments. So you want to talk about a group of like-minded folks. If we got assignments that required us to work 100-hour a week, that's what
Mhm.
we would do. And we did not turn them away. And we were a force.
Love that. That is fantastic. So you get this opportunity, it's growing, you're obviously growing and developing yourself, your familiarity, your experience, your capacity. Were you doing appraisal for the full 10 years, or were you taking on different responsibilities along the way?
Well, I was doing sales and
Oh,
doing appraisals. So I was helping to grow the business in that capacity, building
okay.
relationships, bringing business into the company, and
Wow.
earning a piece of that revenue for that.
Wow.
And
So
that sort of set the stage for a lot of opportunity that came after.
got it. So how far along were you as developing appraisal before you started to do more than just real estate appraisal? Because a lot of people get in and do one thing for a long period of time. And I hear you clearly over in the first 10 years, we're doing more than just one thing.
Yeah, it wasn't long, just a few years in. Tony is if I'm an entrepreneur, he's an entrepreneur squared. And
Okay.
so, when the appraisal business was up and running, he had some other ventures that he got into, and I wanted more. And
Mhm.
so, I said, listen, your focus is over here, your focus is over there, my focus is here.
Yes.
I'm going to go out and start expanding our client base, and we negotiated, something that worked for both of us in that respect. So it wasn't very long that,
That's
I
great.
was out there selling the services.
Oh, that's fantastic. So basically, you stepped in a business development capacity, got compensated for it. Did he bring you as an owner as well, or just
No,
compensation for business development?
no, just compensation for business development.
That's okay.
Now, after towards the end of that 10-year run,
Mhm.
internet lending was coming of age, and
Yes.
and so a lot of our customers were asking us to provide services outside of central Indianapolis and
Oh, really?
or
Okay.
central other.
Yes.
And like a lot of appraisal firms do, the path of least resistance for that is to become an appraisal management company, because then you can tap into that independent contractor network. And
Yeah.
so that's what we did. We started an appraisal management company, and and in that venture, I was a minority owner and moved into a chief operating officer role,
Wow.
stopped doing appraisals and focused on business development of that appraisal management company.
No kidding.
Um,
That's great.
yeah, yeah.
Wow. And what year was this? So this is obviously post Y2K, is what I'm gathering.
It was right at about the development of HVCC.
Really? Oh, wow.
Yeah,
What a
yeah,
fascinating time to be in
yeah.
and
So
around.
that was a tailwind in that venture, but we brought in some really great people. We got some capital, and we grew that AMC to the largest non-captive appraisal management company in the country at the time.
No
And
kidding.
that,
That's,
yeah, it was
that's
a good run. We had a lot of great
so
people, met a lot of great people along the way, and really launched a lot of careers through that venture.
wonderful to hear. Some people listening know exactly what you're talking about, but some people don't. So when you say have the largest non-captive AMC, what does that actually mean?
Yeah. So, if you think back to AMC's like Land Safe was
Mhm.
obviously a big one that if you've been in the space for a while, it was started by the parent lender, right? So what I mean by non-captive is you have a large lender that needs to manage the fulfillment of their appraisal needs, and rather going out to an appraisal management company in the marketplace, they just stand up their own that they
Yes.
own, either entirely or in some material way. That's a captive. So that
Mhm.
AMC doesn't have to work real hard to get business, right? They're
Wow.
going to get that
Yes,
business
right there.
from the parent that owns them, versus a non-captive that is
Mhm.
just a freestanding business going out there and
Got
looking
it.
to provide its services to customers in the industry.
No, that's fantastic. And since a lot of people, the feedback I received, a lot of people have never been a part of large organizations or large institutions. They don't really have a sense of the scope and the scale of the industry. So when you say largest non-captive, and we're going back some amount of time, how big is that to give people a sense in terms of like coverage and people and that kind of thing?
A different time, but when we ultimately sold that business, which by the way we sold it to a company that was a Fortune 500, billion-dollar market cap company is who
Wow.
ultimately purchased it. But we were doing around 40,000 appraisals per month. We were engaging, roughly 10,000 appraisers to do those
Yeah.
over an annual period.
Yeah. Impressive.
We tried to concentrate that volume, but that gives you some maybe
Yeah.
sense of the scale.
No, that's thank you. I think for many people it's real easy to look at, well, I do a certain amount, or maybe I have a few people with me and we do a certain number of appraisals, and they most people don't have an opportunity or take the opportunity to step back and say, but how many assignments are really going on? And what percent of the relationship that I'm serving am I? Like, am I, even though I exist, am I 1%? Am I 20%? Am I like 0.2%? And so to hear those kind of numbers, and obviously there's high concentrations within those areas. I mean, 10,000 covers a lot of geography, but I'm sure it
Yeah,
was an
sure.
80-20, and as it is in so many ways in
Yep.
terms of concentration, performance, and acceleration. But and back then, 40,000, like how much of the industry was that? Were you guys 10% of the industry? Were you 50% of the industry?
No, I would say that was closer to around a 30% market share
Yeah.
in the AMC space. Yeah.
That's impressive. You build it from, hey, we're going to go do this, and suddenly account for 30% of the market. I mean, that's an incredible accomplishment.
Well, we had a lot of help along the way, but certainly, that's not to diminish what ultimately was accomplished by everybody involved. It was, like I said, it was a very, very, very fun and rewarding experience, and even then through the acquisition
Yeah.
was a very educational experience when you're talking about now being part of a conglomerate organization.
No, that is definitely the case. And was that, and I apologize, I thought I was listening, but maybe I wasn't. Was that 40,000 a month is how you were
Uh-huh.
handling that? Yeah, I
Yeah.
mean, that is massive volume from the standpoint of putting systems and processes in place. What does it take? I mean, I think of somebody who recently joined us, and we bring them through our process and our system, and we handle some assignments. We don't handle 40,000. What type of
Yeah.
thinking and preparation and build does it take to get to that kind of scale?
Well, it's a lot of trial and error. It's a lot of devotion to continuous improvement for sure.
Yeah.
But everything that you do with every policy, you have to balance whether or not it is scalable, and it requires a great technology. It requires great leadership. And, I can remember back to the fact that, moving from a 30 employee organization to almost 300 inside
Wow.
of 6 months, right? And that was, you have a job fair and you take down space. And we were filling, one floor while the second floor was being built out. And when the second floor was filled, we built out the third floor, and ended up filling the whole building. And in that case, you've got 300 employees with 4 months tenure. So you start, putting, different color shirts on on different roles within the organization so that you can identify them very quickly. And everyone is really engaged and in that honeymoon phase and working together. And so you start to build that, but then things settle and processes are built. And as you grow, they get stressed and have to be rethought and changed and evolve. And, all of the things that go into those growing pains. And if you can get through that and you can build those systems that do scale and you can get people engaged in those systems and people are a part of those systems and you're doing things for the right reasons, then, some of it is luck, some of it just works out, and some of it is really much extensive planning. We used to have on one of the walls and the floors in big, what they call them, fathead stickers, do things right and do right things, and that was our mantra. And then on the heels of that, it's if it doesn't work for everyone, it doesn't work for long. So, that's the secret sauce, really, Michael, are those two things. Use that philosophy and build things around it.
Yeah. Wow. Thanks for sharing that. And I think I recall you mentioning that being integral in the formation and getting some great people and a little bit of capital to get going. How did your role evolve through this time? Because this is one of those things that some people listening like, I didn't know that was possible. Like, I'm doing whatever I'm doing, and here's what someone else went and did.
Yeah, I mean, well, I went to school for finance and economics, not operations management.
That's why I'm asking the question, because people are like, wow, he's not like organizational development and behavior. Like, what? How does that really go?
Yeah, necessity, breeds invention, right?
Yes, it does.
And when there's a problem in front of you, you solve that problem to the best of your ability, and you bring in the resources you can afford to do so to help you. And you bootstrap it in a lot of instances. And that was part of those early days. And then when you realize, what you're responsible for, you do your own self-analysis of what your strengths and weaknesses are, and you go and you start educating yourself around those weaknesses, and you just grow in what you're capable of doing. Yeah. And as you do that, you hopefully inspire others to do the same.
That's so. How did you go back to get your MBA at IU, or were you just like head down, just trying to keep all the wheels on the proverbial bus if you went from 30 people to 300 in a matter of 6 months? How was your development, if you will? How was your evolution and matriculation and ultimately transformation? Because I mean that's a huge accomplishment to be a part of.
That's the MBA of School of Hard Knocks, I guess.
Hard Knocks, that's it.
Yeah, right. But no, I mean, listen, we I ran that business for in a successful way for many years, and then, like I said, it eventually got purchased by a very, very large publicly held company, and that was another learning journey. It was a completely different world. Operating in a corporate environment with that level of resources, that size, going from a few hundred or several hundred employees to thousands. And now it's a completely different ballgame and a different level of scale. And so I spent, 5 years in that organization and learned a great deal from a lot of great people there.
Yeah.
And, and ultimately it was that point in my career that, really led to the appraisal firm now, which is Velux Valuations.
Got it. So for you, having had that experience around being with a startup appraisal firm, spinoff or extension from a brokerage, to get an opportunity to be doing business development, to having clients that say, hey, can you work with us in another market area, to that becoming an AMC, and then ultimately going after and creating the largest non-captive AMC. What did you learn along the way that probably at each step you didn't know before you did? And granted, that's even before the sale, but as you're going through that, moving into the first new market and then, more markets, and then literally covering the country.
80% of all businesses fail within 5 years, according to the U.S. Census Bureau. with so many roles and responsibilities that must be managed and have nothing to do with appraisal reports. Is it any surprise that it's hard to keep up, much less having a sense of peace, stability, and profitability that comes from growing your business? Given all of this, you might already be thinking about exiting your business one day. Don't miss the limited opportunity to work with Michael, a real estate expert and professional coach. He has worked with more than 300 owners and entrepreneurs to find their highest and best use by solving problems that reach their most important goals. Compress decades of learning into days by working with Michael. Michael is famous in real estate and business coaching. With his help, you can accelerate your growth, increase your quality of life, and earn more money, all while ultimately doing less. Michael helps you not just grow your business, but also find new purpose in it and in your life. If you're ready to take control instead of being controlled, contact him on LinkedIn or email him at michaelh@paru.com.
Well, I mean, I've covered some of that. You know, what I learned along the way was how to put your faith in others in your organization. You know, the smaller you are, you're wearing every hat, right? You're trying to do everything, and at some point that becomes too much. And then you've got to bring in great people, and you've got to develop a relationship with those people. And then you have to trust that what you've employed those people to do within the organization, you have to trust them to do it.
Yes.
And you know, and then at the same time, you've got to inspect what you expect, and that really fundamentally doesn't change as you get bigger and bigger and bigger. You just get, you know, that just becomes becomes implemented at a department level and then at a division level, and it scales up. So, you know, I think probably some of the greatest lessons that I learned is that, you know, is to surround yourself with very good people that share your values and the direction in which the business is going, and then let them do what it is that you employed them to do.
That makes sense. What was it like expanding into other markets? 'Cause that's definitely something people, you know, have ideas about, but then most people get, you know, kind of stuck. Either they're like, hey, I just cover this area, or they don't have a sense of how to go to other areas. But it was what I think I heard you say. It was because of client requests, like, hey, you're doing a great job here. We'd like you to be there. What's that like? A lot of people listening have no idea.
Yeah, well, I think it's probably better answered in the current role, because as an AMC, which we are not today. I mean, the appraisal firm Bellox Valuations that you know I operate today, we're an appraisal firm, not an appraisal management company. So, you know, back in the AMC days, lenders would very quickly ask you to cover large geographic areas, and in that model, which is one of appraisal fulfillment, you have the ability to work with independent contractors in each of those markets. So, you know, expanding into those other areas was a matter of outreach for finding independent contractor talent and attracting them into your panel to be able to engage them when your client needs you to. So, you know, I guess you learn things that, you know, appraising is different in different markets. Yeah. So, you know, appraising in San Diego, California is different than appraising in Indianapolis, Indiana. You know, the properties are different, the market's different, the appraisers are different. And I think that's true from state to state. So you learn that, and, you know, all that goes along with that. But, you know, the appraisal firm today, you know, we only have W-2 employee appraisers that work exclusively for Bellox Valuations. So, you know, when we're expanding into these other markets, you know, it's trying to find employment relationships, which is a much different relationship, and that has its set of challenges too. And you just have to initiate that outreach, and you've got to have meaningful conversations with those that are potentially interested in working with you. And I think that's probably true, you know, in both models.
Yeah, I appreciate that. I mean, and so then stepping back, so here you're part of this, you're part of the the leadership team then that actually grew into the largest non-captive, and then you all sold to a Fortune 500. I think you said about half a decade. You got to work in that environment. What's it like going from growing a business quite successfully I would just say based on the numbers without actually having all the numbers, to
Yep.
entering into an agreement for sale and then being around for 5 years. Sounds like a significant change of culture and probably impact and scale. Share, if you don't mind, could you share a little bit about that?
Yeah, it's completely different environment. You learn a whole new vocabulary. Here, let me circle back, right? And let's think outside the box, and you learn all the corporate lingo, so that's always new. But listen, they have their processes, they have their vocabulary, they have their systems, and in most cases, in this case, we were in a very good organization, and they do those things because they're supporting 5,000 employees, right? Not 500. So you learn very quickly how to put that kind of lens on when you're looking at the way they did it versus the way you've done it, and why. And that perspective is what the learning process is all about. And so it was a lot of fun. There were a lot of things that I did not like at all, and there was a lot of things that I did that I've applied to to things I've done after.
For those that haven't had an opportunity to work in a corporate environment, what are some of the opportunities to be in that space?
Well, the bigger organizations have perhaps more upward mobility. So you can climb the corporate ladder, if you will. There's a lot of lateral movement as well. A lot of times organizations like that have the resources to put people through school. I had some folks on my team that got their MBA through that organization, paid for. So you've got those types of opportunities. You've got a lot of resources that certainly, if you know how to navigate that, you can take advantage of.
Yeah, I can definitely appreciate that. And having been with a lot of very successful owners and entrepreneurs over the last 15 years, especially in my work, also as a Bloom growth coach for them, there's that amazing experience where you have an idea, there's a demand, there's a need, you add value, you get compensated for it. You grow it big enough. Sometimes people come along and say, "Hey, I like what you've got and I'm willing to buy it from you." And you're like, "Oh my goodness." And so you sell, and then you get an opportunity to work for them. And then it's kind of like dating. After a while, you're like, "Yeah, I don't know that I want to stay in this relationship." And almost all of my peers that have gone on a similar path as you might be there for a year or two, whatever, especially if they have an employment agreement. Some stay a little bit longer, but inevitably, most of them don't stay. That entrepreneurial bug either really rears up and takes them into another area. And sometimes it's just a fit or an opportunity. And they're like, hey, this has been a great experience and it's time to move on. It sounds like about 5 years was your run of that too there, Chad.
Well, sort of. I didn't necessarily leave because I was done with that phase in my career.
Oh, okay.
While we were there as the purchased appraisal management company, we set goals to hire staff appraisers like so many AMCs do.
Yes.
And we went out and we hired, over about a 3.5 to 4 year period of time, we hired 100 staff appraisers. And it was an absolutely fantastic group of appraisers. We outperformed all of the independent contractors in the panel. We were picking up customers as a result of that. But despite our success, we were a small P&L within a large conglomerate and a part of a larger investment thesis that didn't necessarily pan out. So they were signaling that they were going to sell that AMC, and that was the writing on the wall. And so myself and several others compelled the business to sell the staff appraiser division in an asset sale to us. And so we did that, and we got that through, which was not easy, but we did it. And that's where Velox Valuations, the appraisal firm, was born. And that happened on April 1st of 2020. So,
my goodness. You picked April Fool's Day of 2020 to do this?
Well, we picked April Fool's Day and then also the start of a global pandemic where It was being decided pretty much after we inked the deal. It was pretty much being decided as to whether or not we were going to be deemed essential to even continue to do business. We had one customer, which was the former parent, no volume guarantees whatsoever.
Oh.
And we had just under 100 appraisers on the P&L. So needless to say, it was probably, I didn't sleep for about 4 months.
Oh,
but ultimately, we were deemed essential, and we had an incredibly driven team. And again, just a great set of appraisers working together. And we had all that time leading up to that in building relationships in the space. When I say we, I mean myself, the other owners, and other people within the org. And so we took that and we leveraged those relationships, and they opened doors. Didn't create contracts. It just opened doors and gave us the opportunity to earn business. Yeah. And 5 years later, now we have 100 ordering clients, in any given quarter.
That's fantastic. So first of all, congratulations. Very few people get an opportunity to actually purchase a business, much less purchase a business they've been an active part of and have good understanding of. So I would put forth, based on my experience working with a lot of very successful leadership teams, they're the ideal buyer, because they're not just, private equity coming in looking for a multiple, and then they have to go out and hire a leadership team that hopefully has some idea how to do it. But I mean, you knew where all the bodies were buried, as they like to say.
That's very true. And it was seamless. We hit the ground running. For our team, it was very little change in their day to day, because we offered all of the same, Fortune 500 employment packages with full bennies, and we still do today. So it was very seamless, I think, in that respect for our workforce, and they're just consummate professionals, and they took it in stride, and they continue to do what they do, which is, provide exceptional appraisal services.
Wow, that is absolutely phenomenal. I would, jokingly say, I would hope that if you took in this case, a subsidiary off a corporate hand on 4/1 of 20, that they paid you to take it, given what was going on. But nobody knew for sure what was going on 4/1 of 20. I have a small sense that it didn't go that way, and the money transferred from your investment group to theirs, and not vice versa.
We negotiated well.
That's good. I'm glad to hear that. That's one. There were a number of acquisitions that were in the pipeline and then hatched in that first and second quarter of 2020, and a lot of them didn't make it. So it's very encouraging to hear that you guys did.
Yeah, what do they say? In a good negotiation, both sides walks away feeling like they didn't get what they wanted, right?
Yeah, that's definitely the case. That is definitely the case. Oh my goodness. So you all get an opportunity, as you started out, as you said, as a field appraiser. You had your, would you say, your offer, your invitation and acceptance in 30 minutes on your first day. And here you are, right. You got an opportunity to participate in an entrepreneurial business, to grow part of that business, to go on and create another business, to sell and be a part of a corporate organization, and then to go via essentially an internal carve out, get an opportunity to continue to focus on something that you knew well. What was some people are going to wonder, like, wow, Chad, you just seem like a smart guy. Like, why are you still in the industry? Like, most people are like, hey, you had an opportunity to get out. Why are you still there? And clearly you all saw an opportunity, or you see value, you have a belief. Share with us about that, please.
Yeah, I appreciate the question. I have a lot of respect for the appraisal profession. It's what I've done out of college, to your point, but I've been able to wear a lot of hats along the way. Yes. Performing the appraisals in the field, moving into leadership roles and mentoring, appraisers. I didn't mention that. I mean, I've brought 5 appraisers from trainee status to full certification. So the mentorship, and then, moving into an operating role and being able to lead an organization and drive the ship, if you will. And the things that we've talked about, it hasn't just been one experience throughout this journey. So when we got the opportunity to launch Velox Valuations, it wasn't even a thought to do anything else. And, and in this role now, having come full circle, what motivates me is to be able to do something that's good for the appraisers and for the profession. And that's that's why we've stayed firm on what our value proposition is as an appraisal firm, both in the employment relationship that we have with the appraisers and the manner at which we do business with our customers, and how we're trying to proliferate that and grow that, because we believe in the appraiser getting back into that transaction, being the subject matter expert and for the ordering customer, and that's really what drives us. So, for me, I never even thought about doing anything else, Michael.
Got it. Fascinating. So given where you're at today, I would say you clearly have an optimistic outlook, given a choice to be an acquirer of an internal corporate carve-out. Well, what are you optimistic about and looking forward to over the next 3 to 5 years?
I like the advancements that are happening in the space. A lot of circumstances, I think we as an appraiser community, perhaps there's a good segment of our population that fears change, is very suspicious of change. But from my perspective and those that I'm talking to at a high level in the space, I don't share that. I actually think that it is long overdue. I think the new technologies that are coming in are simply making the residential appraisal more reliable, more easily interpreted by the intended user. I think that it brings efficiency into the process, and I'm bullish on that. And let's talk about hybrid appraisals, the bifurcation, of the residential appraisal process. We've been doing, as an organization, hybrid appraisals since day one. Every single quarter, we have a company town hall, and it is a standing topic that we promote and we track and we collaborate on. And I think that it's a good thing. I think that it's new and it's fresh, and it builds capacity in the space, and it opens up doors that I don't even think that folks are really thinking about yet. But I don't think the appraiser's going away and anytime in the near future. I think that the way that we practice our profession is changing, and I'm excited about that change.
Oh, I love that. I love that. Fantastic. So you had this opportunity, you came through it, you're very bullish on the future. And what experiences have you reflected on that have you be positioned the way you are for Velox? Because a lot of people haven't heard of this firm yet. They're definitely going to. And some people are going to be interested in it. Some people are not. And that's okay. That's always a good thing. But clearly you have, as they would say in the corporate world, an investment thesis for why you and some peers chose to step in and do something a little different.
Yeah, I think so. What we're doing at Velox is we're trying to create opportunities for the residential appraiser. And I'll put the residential appraiser into two categories, just based on our own experience. One is the appraiser that wants to be an employee within a firm, within a group, and really focus on their appraising, focus on honing those skills and becoming, the best appraiser that they can. And that's their swim lane. And then there are others that want those same things, but they want to become entrepreneurs, or rather they are entrepreneurs, and they want to become, owners of businesses that, that are substantial and that can scale. And so, we started off with the former. We have, like you said, we have appraisers across 25 states. We have a great team. But through that recruitment of those appraisers, we were running into that other category of entrepreneurs. And so what we wanted to do was bring a solution to them. There's no shortage of tools out there, right? There's There's software, there's hardware, there's forums, there's discussion boards, there's this podcast, right? There's all sorts of things out there to bring information to appraisers. But at the same time, appraisers operate in a highly fragmented way. It's a network of small independent businesses, and they're all battling, to sort of market the same services to lenders and AMCs and attorneys and consumers. And, that fragmented supplier chain makes it incredibly difficult for appraisers to gain leverage, with major national customers to effectively market their services, for real growth. And then to realize the benefits of being part of a team that collaborates, that can create systems that can be adopted for scale. So you asked about kind of what we're doing, what we're excited about. Right now, it's our new franchise offering. And what we want to do is we want to help appraisers sort of evolve their businesses, right? Be able to attack customer growth, use those systems to scale, and then use, marketing leverage within the brand to be able to go after those customers. And so that's what we're doing right now. We've started the franchise model. We've opened an office in Dallas. We've got an office in San Diego. We've got an office in Nashville. We've got prospects in several locations in Florida and up the East Coast. And it is that balance of offering employment opportunities in the space, offering franchise opportunities in the space, and doing so within a collective brand that gives everyone a voice and gets us a seat at the table as appraisers.
Got it. Fantastic. Well, Chad, I mean, that's what we love most about the podcast. We get an opportunity to talk to peers and hear perspective and understand possibilities for the future that some people may resonate with and others didn't even know was possible. And here it is. You're like, well, here's this future that we see and we believe in, and you literally are betting on. As they say, you put your money where your mouth is by getting in on this opportunity and opening it up and extending it to others. So appreciate you coming and sharing this with us.
Well, my pleasure. We've got skin in the game and we're passionate about it, and we like to talk about it. So we appreciate you letting us do it.
No, definitely a pleasure. And friends, as I mentioned, it's always an opportunity to learn and grow and contribute. And clearly Chad is doing that with us, alongside us, and for some people in the industry for us. And we definitely appreciate that. So Chad, thanks for coming on the podcast and sharing a little bit of your journey and what you're up to next.
My pleasure, Michael. I hope to be back sometime again soon.
Oh, well, that's why we have our bonus sessions. That way we get to go deep into fun stuff. But that's always
all right.
Sounds good. Person first. So you have definitely taken that step for us. So friends, you definitely are going to want to share this. Definitely comment and feel free to reach out to Chad as well. So with that, we're going to bring this episode to a close. And until the next time, you have a fantastic day.
Thanks for listening to this week's episode of Appraisers, Appraisers on Purpose. We hope you enjoyed learning from the amazing professional paths and achievements of our beloved guests. Before we go, please subscribe on your listening channel, Spotify, LinkedIn, YouTube, and other podcast channels to hear more from appraisers and valuers regarding their life and their work. After you drop a comment below, who is one friend and peer you can generously share this episode with? If you have any suggestions or questions for future episodes, we'd love to hear from you. Just send us a message on LinkedIn and we'll be sure to get back to you. Thanks again for listening, and until we're together again for the next session of Appraisers on Purpose, create the change that you seek.